was born in Wuhan, China. I think. I don't really know. No one does, really, I think. The first thing that anyone knows that happened to me was I was abandoned on site at an orphanage in Wuhan, China, with no information. So they gave me a name there, and this name was changed when my adoptive parents flew to China. And apparently on the flight back to America, I stood on my seat and waved at all the people behind us, because that's what kids are like. They're happy. Growing up, I remember having the biggest ego in the whole world. Man, I remember I thought I was the best at everything, from sports to art to making people laugh, but the one thing I was not very good at was school, and by that I mean I was pretty bad at it. I remember crying so hard in first grade over a math question I completely soaked my white t-shirt, and I remember in second grade struggling to read full sentences while my friends devoured chapter books, and then again in fourth grade I was struggling in the lowest math class. Is this ironic? My parents didn't raise me the way that many people assume I've been raised. But my mom did try to help me in school. She'd sit down with me and teach me new ways to think about multiplication or addition, and she'd help me come up with sentences for my vocabulary words. My mom was super creative. We'd do crafts together, sit together by the family room coffee table, and draw on thin newsprint. We'd write stories together. We'd write so many stories together. My mom was also my best friend, and to be honest, she was kind of my only friend. Sure, I had some friends here and there, but you know, in retrospect, I was a pretty big emotional loner. And that was fine. I was happy with my life. Your mom is a good best friend to have. We'd make cookies together. She'd get me milk tea and candy, and we would spend hours writing, drawing, and reading stories together. She'd buy me a lot of books. I remember in fourth grade, I was lying on the floor reading a book called Ways to Live Forever, about a main character, Sam, and his struggle with terminal cancer. The home phone rang. My mom was polite on the call, but afterwards it was the first time I had ever heard my mom curse. And spoiler alert to anyone who wants to read Ways to Live Forever, Sam dies. Cancer. It sucks. It really does suck. In case you've somehow forgotten already, I was pretty stupid in elementary school. Not saying anything's changed, but I do wish I was more self-aware at least. I was convinced that any kind of sadness was an unforgivable weakness. I only let myself show any frustration, sadness, or confusion to my mom. But you can't do that when your mom is dying. No one needs to hear about your math homework when your parents are screaming at each other over diet, food, or medicine. No one can see you cry when your mom has 2 life-threatening seizures in front of you and you need to call 911 and spend the night in the emergency room listening to other patients crying, screaming, and vomiting into those stupid pink vomit trays. And when you go back to school the next day and smile and joke and laugh, no one needs to know you're only smiling because you're terrified of what happens if you don't smile. No one needs to know that. In the moment though, I thought I was happy. I thought I was strong. I thought I don't need to talk about this because no one asked. It was expected for me to not talk about it. I have 2 major regrets. The first is living in denial. I thought, if I just ignore the oxygen tank she has to carry around now, that freaking dumb vomit tray, her bald head always covered by a hat, if I ignore the fact that the first thing I did in 6th grade when I came home was making sure that she was still breathing, and if I ignore that she needs a bone marrow transplant to survive, but she's too weak to get one, so she's probably gonna die, if I just ignore all of that, it's gonna be fine. And in the future, we'll be able to sit at the coffee table and draw together again without me feeling like trash because I know she's weak but still wants to spend time with me. If I ignore all of that in the future, it'll all be okay. And obviously, life doesn't work like that. But my biggest regret of my life so far is after a really bad seizure, my dad told me I could either go to the emergency room with him or I could spend a night at the friend's house. He knew then. I knew then. But I chose to pretend not to know. If I don't go, I don't need to think about it. If I don't go, I don't need to face my fears and I don't need to be brave. I'm not brave. So I chose my friend's house, and thus my biggest regret so far is actively choosing, conscientiously deciding to not be with the person who's loved me more, who's loved me 1,000 times more than I ever deserve in the whole world, to not be there with my mom as she died. And I really, really regret that. So now, it's just my dad and me. And when I was younger, I was terrified of my dad. My earliest memory of him was when I was about 4 and he was yelling at me for something, and I remember he got out a giant black trash bag and shaking it out so it makes that loud whoosh whoosh sound, and he started throwing away my stuffed animals in that. And I remember hating him. My last set of memories about him concern him always being better than me. My dad is one of the most talented people I know. He didn't study that hard in school. He's told me himself that he's pretty lazy, but he's so accomplished. And I hate people like that. I hate them because I wish that were me. I remember him beating me in every single game of backgammon, tennis, checkers, chess, and that one video game we played together. Growing up, I felt like he liked to watch me struggle. Whenever I didn't know how to do something, he would never tell me how to do it, even if I knew he knew how to do it. And I hated him for that. Looking back at it, he might have just been watching, waiting for me to succeed, but I couldn't see that side of him then. To complicate things a little bit more, my dad liked to make me mad. I remember him telling me that, using his own words here, it gives him a thrill to make me upset. And unfortunately, I was very immature and I took the bait every single time. So I remember for the first 2 years of high school, I barely talked to him. We maybe said like 5 sentences each to each other the whole week, and we live in the same house. I'm ashamed of my early memories of him. I know he used to read to me every night. He used to teach me how to use my computer, but why can't I remember that instead? My dad is the most hardworking man I know, and like my mom, one of the most selfless people I know, which makes me really feel like crap for not liking him more. Everyone else in my family dotes over him and his quiet, mysterious demeanor, but seemingly endless talents, and I genuinely think he's a really good person. So what kind of monster must I be to sometimes feel like I don't love him? Hate myself. Hating myself. Pretty much the theme of my freshman and sophomore years of high school. Freshman year is the year that the word college starts to float around. Actually, if you have overachieving Asian friends, that word was ingrained in them since elementary school. I remember hearing about how my friend started studying for the SAT in 8th grade and how she takes 3 classes outside of school and she goes to a community college and she founded a nonprofit, and how what college you go to is important. You know, you should take SAT classes too. I'm skipping a class. My tutor taught me everything already. Volunteer here. It's okay if you don't like it. Looks really good on college apps. Fill up your time. Work hard. You're not doing enough. You need to do this, this, and this. And I learned about all of that freshman to sophomore year. I also remember learning about how my friend cried herself to sleep every night because she misses her dad. And I remember learning about how my other friend learned to put her hands over her little brother's ears when their parents argue. And I remember learning about how some of my classmates calorie count every meal to the point of hospitalization, and how others cut themselves to make them feel better. And I remember 2 years after my mom dying, really understanding death. But I need to be okay. Because if I'm not okay, people will worry about me. And I hate that. Love, affection, yuck, get away. I have family members with more love for me than I know what to do with. My aunt and my grandma especially are very expressive people. They're not afraid to show others that they love them, and I'm terrified of that. Because if it's actual love, it's real. And I don't understand that. So I keep my mouth shut, and I listen to my friends. Honestly, I'm really glad I listened to them, because, without them, who knows if I would have even taken the SAT. My dad never told me anything about college. That made me feel even more stupid. How can I compete with these people? I can't. That's it. I can't. I look at other people's pictures of their art, and I look at mine. I look at their faces. I look at mine. I look at their grades, their bodies, their life, their families. And I hated myself. I don't feel dumb, untalented, fat, or ugly. I am dumb, untalented, fat, and ugly. Normally, I'm a strict denier of anything absolute, but at that point in my life, I really, really hated myself. It was at that point that I realized it doesn't matter 1 ounce of what you actually are. It only matters what you think you are. If you think you're smart, you're smart. But if you think you're dumb, you're dumb. I got 99 percentile for the SAT. I have a 4.0 unweighted GPA. I've gotten 100% on AP Bio test, 99% on AP Calc BC test, but I've never felt smart. Therefore, I'm not smart. I'm a black belt in 2 different types of martial arts. I was on the competition team for both of the martial arts. I founded the martial arts club here at Homestead, but I feel fat and weak. Therefore, I am fat and weak. I argue with myself. I call it the cycles. Remember how that friend cries herself to sleep? Remember how your house is quiet, not filled with parents arguing? Remember how lucky you are? How dare you not rank in the top 1% for the SAT? Look at your home. It's a good home. It's a quiet home. You can study. Look at your neighborhood. No one's getting shot in it. Look at your dad's salary. Look at your clothes. Look at your fancy dumb iPhone and computer. Your vacation destinations. How much privilege do you have? Do you know how much you ought to be grateful? Well, it's hard to forget when it's all your dad talk about. It's hard to forget when it's so painfully true. It's hard to forget when you hate yourself for it. I have all of this. Yet I didn't take all the hard classes. I'm not the president of 3 clubs, but some people are. I've never skipped a lesson or taken a summer course. That's called wasted resources. That's called being lazy, ungrateful, and not worth it. Given all of this, and I throw it away on what? YouTube? On TV? Oh, no. I can't think like that. There's plenty of people way richer than you who work way less than you do. It's not like you're a horrible person. At worst, you're probably average. And that's supposed to be okay? Am I supposed to just settle for average? So you're okay with being complacent? Do you even have any motivation? Okay, dude. Hating on yourself isn't gonna motivate you. Well, feeling like I already know everything isn't either, you know. Okay, Sarah, stop being so hard on yourself. Being hard on myself? Ha. If I was being hard on myself, you'd think I'd actually have accomplished something in my life by now. Clearly, I'm not being hard enough on myself. Then why do you feel like trash? Because you have the willpower of a lima bean and you give up as soon as you start failing at anything? Hello? You're literally so weak, it's pathetic. Okay, hold on. I lost my mother and okay, mister, you're not the only one who's lost a parent. Plus, you lost a parent, that's it. You have your dad, you live in the Silicon Valley. You know how many people would literally kill for everything you have? Stop pitying yourself. Well, isn't that what you're doing right now? I remember specifically one day when I was taking notes for chem honors and I was writing and suddenly I wasn't. I just couldn't. And I remember this tsunami of pressure crashing down onto my chest. It was all in my head, but it felt so real. No matter how hard I tried, I could not keep writing. And I remember so clearly understanding. I don't have a future. I'm not smart enough, not pretty enough, not nice enough, athletic enough, funny enough. I'm not enough. But I also remember thinking, that's okay. There are 7.5 billion people in this world. Not everyone can be enough. Not everyone is going to die happy. That's statistically not possible. People die unhappy. That's a fact. Mom died. People moved on. It's possible because they're stronger than me. They'll make it. They'll be fine. If anything, after they get over my death, they'll be stronger, better people for it. Isn't that what everyone always ends up saying? My friends are young. It's not like they can't get over that kind of thing. But if I'm gone, my dad would be all alone in our house. And I know what it feels like to consistently come home to an empty house. And I would really hate myself if I was the one who made him do that. Which made me hate myself even more for considering that option, so there was kind of a positive feedback loop going on at this time. And it got to the point where I tried to kill myself. Actually, I tried to kill myself multiple times. There were many days like that, but there's one day I remember in particular. I don't know anything about drugs or overdoses, and stepping in front of a car makes someone else a murderer, but we do have kitchen knives. And I remember after that, stumbling into my room. And the walls were spinning. I remember hearing my heartbeat. It was so loud, it was suffocating. And my hands were shaking, the lights were blurry, and I felt like breathing was no longer an involuntary reflex. And I went to bed, woke up the next morning, went to school, took notes, did my homework, talked with my friends, I laughed. And it was like any other day, but I knew something had changed, and I needed help. So, started going to therapy. talking with someone about all of my inner monologue helped me in ways I didn't think it was possible to. I never thought that would matter. Having someone actually ask me, "How are you?" Having someone tell me that my problems make sense. Having someone tell me how to overcome my problems. My friends never asked. My family never asked. Granted, I do think I fake smile pretty well, and who asks a happy person what's under their smile? After a while of therapy, I remember at Thanksgiving break of my sophomore year, my friend group all planned to go ice skating together, and I remember the night before lying in bed looking at the ceiling and being excited. Being excited. I couldn't even remember the last time I felt happy for the future. That was really, really special. Of course, it's not like I was happy all of a sudden. Definitely had some other close encounters. And if you ask me seriously if I think I'm smart enough or nice enough, for example, and not even smart or nice, but smart enough, I still couldn't say yes. I think the reason why I'm happy now is not because I've overcome my insecurities, but because I don't obsess over them anymore. I just don't think about them that much. They're just kind of there. In other words, I haven't solved them, but I'm not battling them every day. In other words, I'm probably still living in denial. For example, I really don't like the way I look. I really don't understand when people say, "Oh, I feel beautiful, I feel cute." Like, I've never come close to feeling that, at least in high school. Why don't I feel like I'm beautiful? Well, easy answer to that is I'm not. I don't get why I think that. I honestly have never thought someone else looks ugly. I think everyone around me actually is super attractive. That's a genuine thought of mine. I remember in sophomore year or so, my dad was walking my dog with me. Already a phenomena. And I don't remember how we got to this topic, but I remember him saying, "Oh, in the future you'll be beautiful." And I remember immediately just being like, "Why?" And then he said, "Because you are beautiful right now." And I was shocked, so shocked. I stopped walking mid-stride, and I don't really know why. I guess it's because I never really thought my dad thought like that. When I was younger, I remember every time he saw me looking in the mirror, he would be like, "Oh, do you think you're good looking or something?" But in some ways, I almost don't want to be okay with how I look. I feel like it's not okay to be okay with how I look. Why? I think mostly two reasons. One, remember how in elementary school I was super cocky and I thought I was really good looking, and if I'm being honest, I really hated elementary school Sarah, and I'm terrified of becoming anything like that again, because at one point, that was me. Yeah, I was a kid, but everyone else was too. And two, because I'm terrified of being wrong. Remember how I was dumb? Yeah, I brought that up a little bit. Well, what better way to cover up your lack of intelligence by appearing super intelligent? But if you're hiding under a facade, then you're constantly afraid of all of it crashing down. So I don't want to be wrong if I think to myself that I'm smart, or I'm funny, or I'm okay looking at least. I feel like a good number of people actually probably think I'm smart. And I don't know if that's low-key racism or the way I talk, or because I'm actually not half bad in some subjects. But lots of times I still feel like I'm that 9-year-old who always flipped over her time test when all the other smart kids did, just so it seemed like she knew what she was doing. And it worked well. I mean, how would you know? But if you came over to scrawny 9-year-old Sarah and you looked at her test, you'd see she skipped half the questions and it all falls apart. So now, even if 18-year-old Sarah were to sit down and take the exact same test, even if she finished all the questions and flipped the paper over when the smart kids did, she's still terrified of someone coming over and of all of it falling apart again. And I feel like that's the way I live my life a lot. I try to be nice. I actually try pretty hard, I think. Even though I can be pretty awkward about it, not very good at showing my affection or caring for other people, I do try. I definitely put in effort at this point. But I feel like if God were to come down, and if you were to ask him, "Is Sarah Kundo a good person?" I feel like he would still say no. But I guess I have my whole life ahead of me. I'm a healthy young chap. I have plenty of time to figure out how to be a good person, I reckon. And that is something I want to be. I do want to be a good person. I think that would make my mom proud of me. That's something I really want. I know no matter what, she's proud of me, but that's not because of me. That's because of her. Because that's the type of person she is, to be proud of me no matter what. But next time I see her, I want her to be proud of me, not because I'm trying to be good, but because at that point in my life, or death, I am good. And that's a work in progress. But like I said, I'm a healthy young dumpling and I have time to figure that stuff out. And in the meantime, even though I might not be totally okay with myself, I know I have people who are okay with me. Or at least I think I do. Okay, no. That's the one thing I'm not going to let myself take away from me. I must say, I know I do. I have friends who make me so proud of just being their friend. I have friends who I love so much, even though I'm not very good at showing it, who I love so much that it just makes me feel like ridiculous and naive. There are people who I've met who make me think that even if the ratio of good to bad people is 1 to 1 million, it doesn't matter because they're so good. And that's a really golly happy thought to have. I am so grateful to my friends, my family, my dad, for shaping me into who I am today. Even if I'm not entirely happy with myself now, who I am in the future is defined by who I am now. And I have friends and family who make me actually feel like I'm a good person. And what's really special is that there are people who make me feel happy about just being myself. And for me, that's been a really hard thing to accomplish. They make me feel like I'm enough. And you know, maybe, just maybe, I'll dare to let myself believe I am enough.